So today I will be going over the launch of the International Focused Ultrasound Society, or IFUS. And then I did all this work this summer, as you know, but I was assisted by Luna, who is a remote intern who worked about 10 hours a week. A lot of you haven't had the chance to get to know her, but she's been very helpful in my work.
Who is she?
Alicia's daughter.
Oh, Alicia's daughter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So diving right in, I do have a few disclaimers actually first. So the session is being recorded. So for those who can't make it, you'll be able to catch it. They're not here, they didn't hear that, but and then I will be distributing a version of this deck along with some other supporting materials for those that are interested in diving a little bit deeper. And lastly, I ask that you hold your questions to the end. There will be a portion for Q&A. All right, diving in here, a little bit about me. As you know, my name is McKenzie Snow. I'm an MBA candidate at UVA Darden, and my project this summer has been developing the business plan for a focused ultrasound clinical organization. My mentor has been Neil, and I appreciate his support, and Lauren has also assisted me a lot, and so I appreciate her as well. A little bit about what we'll see today. Already covered the introduction. I'll go over some comparative society research and explain a little bit why I did this research. I'll cover the focused ultrasound ecosystem and IFUS vision, some IFUS programs we expect, the membership and funding that will be instituted, and then who will be on the organizing committee and next steps. Last will be the Q&A. So kind of diving into the research that I did to create this business plan. So the thought behind this was I took 10 comparative societies. So these are clinical organizations already in the ecosystem of radiosurgery, neurosurgery, and other similar clinical organizations. And I wanted to learn from them about how they're organized, what their structure looks like, how are they getting funding or revenue. And then once I got all that information, then I would take it and kind of build out the focused ultrasound clinical organization structure using kind of the model from those. So diving right in, what we'll see over the next few slides is this similar structure. So I'll go over a clinical organization, the focus, structure, key programs, and some standouts that or takeaways that we learned from this society. So starting right with the Radiosurgery Society. The Radiosurgery Society focuses on stereotactic radiosurgery, SRS, and then SBRT as well. They have an international board, multiple specialty committees, and a professional staff. They have education and CME credits, clinical registries. This really stood out as their RS search, patient registry. We do plan to have a patient registry in the clinical organization. So this is something that I definitely noticed with the Radiosurgery Society. They also have a tiered sponsorship model that diversifies their revenue. Next, we have the Lexel Gamma Knife Society, who focuses on gamma knife radiosurgery. This one's different because they are led by a single appointed chair, and they operate closely with Elekta, who is a manufacturer of gamma knife systems. Another very different thing that was different from the other societies is that they have no dues. Their membership is bundled with the ownership of a gamma knife system. So that's very different than the other ones that traditionally have membership dues. They also have the lean governance because they are so reliant on Elekta. Next, we have IRRF, the International Radiosurgery Research Foundation. This one, as the name suggests, is more research focused on data collection on stereotactic radiosurgery. They have a board, executive, and scientific committees, and this really just focuses on strong data sharing and their research-focused organization. Next, we have ISRS, or the International Stereotactic Radiosurgery Society, who focuses on SRS, as the name suggests. And again, they have board and committees with rotating international leadership, which was interesting. They have a diverse funding model that combines dues, events, and multi-vendor sponsorships, as well as rotating leadership that encourages inclusivity and among the members. Next, we have the Focal Therapy Society, focuses on image-guided focal therapy for prostate and kidney cancer. This one has master classes, webinars, fellowships, and open access video library, which I found interesting. Their standouts is that this is a sub-society. So it's a sub-society to the Endocrinological Society. And so they have a shared infrastructure to reduce costs, which we could definitely learn from. Next, we have ISMRM that focuses on MRI and MRS research, education, and clinical translation. This is a very large society with over 40 committees. Their annual meetings have around 7,000 attendees. So this is a completely different scale of what we would be looking at for focused ultrasound, at least in the first few years. But definitely some things to learn from, including their strong inclusivity and sustainability initiatives. And they even have member competitions at these annual meetings where members can really get engaged with the work that they're doing. Next, we have the Society for Interventional Radiology that focuses on image-guided, minimally invasive therapies. This, again, is a large board, 50-plus committees. Their annual meeting has around 6,000 attendees. So again, a different scale than what we're looking at, but what we can learn from them is they have a dual entity. So they have both the society and the foundation. So this is very similar to what we would be doing with Focus Ultrasound. And it enables them to have strong funding and governance separation. They also have a lot of volunteer engagement because this is such a large organization. They have a lot of volunteers, which is something we would love to implement as well. Next, we have SNOW, or the Society for Neuro-Oncology. that focuses, as you'd guess it, on neuro-oncology research, education, and clinical care. They have a board with multidisciplinary representatives, which is something that we would love to take away, making sure that all kind of voices are heard, and it gives credibility to the leadership of the organization as well. So I want to take that away. They also have a strong female leadership representation, which is something that definitely stands out in comparison to the other societies. The last slide of this type here is ASTRO. It's the American Society for Radiation Oncology. So they focus on radiation oncology practice and research. They have a large board, councils, and around 100 staff. So this is also a very large organization. For reference, they have 11,000 attendees at their annual meetings. So again, different scale, but we still learn that they have balanced revenue streams and strong policy influence because they are such a large organization. They have a lot of pull in the industry. Lastly, we have the Society of Robotic Surgery that focuses on robotic-assisted surgery. They have a board and executive officers, but they do have a lean admin model, which is interesting. They have some standouts here. They have accessible training that allows people to be more involved and drives adoption. And then they have, like others, multidisciplinary collaboration. So it's a lot of information, a lot of research went into this. You're only seeing about 5% of what research was done. But this is kind of the high level. So I wanted to take a lot of these things. I've mentioned a lot of standouts, but what does this mean for IFUS? And what is the IFUS vision, the mission, and then how does this interact with the foundation and IS2? So here is IFUS. The vision here is the vision statement. It reads, improving the lives of millions by establishing focused ultrasound as a global standard for care for serious medical conditions. The mission statement is to accelerate the adoption, clinical practice, and accessibility of focused ultrasound worldwide. So that's the goal. That's what we're wanting to do. Neil helped me really craft these, and so he had a heavy hand in this. And then Ethan was able to help with this logo here. Appreciate his help. So this is just one idea of what it could be. The star and circle represents a transducer that's focusing in. And so found that really creative. Thank you, Ethan. So this is kind of overarching, but kind of diving into the organization itself and how it may be structured in year one. We'll have a board of directors like many other clinical organizations, and a chair that will head kind of the staff. So what you're seeing here mostly is the staff or volunteers that will help with the organization. And this is pretty lean given that it's just year one. We'll plan to expand this, but you see an executive director that rolls up to the chair. And the executive director will really handle a lot of the day-to-day, be in meetings helping the group of committees here that we have, as well as the treasurer and secretary. Some committees that are top of mind that we'd like to see are the education committee, membership and outreach, meeting, clinical, and website committees. There will also be an advisory council that will help build credibility and make sure that that things are accurate. And so we'll start with a smaller advisory council, and then that may grow. Here's what it could look like for year two. Really, here we're just seeing some depth to this organization structure, adding more members, adding more positions, like 2 or 3 programs managers, or 2 or 3 events managers, or staff. And so that's kind of what this shows. And then we'd also expand in the committees. So here we may add a virtual programs committee or subcommittees, including brain and body subcommittees. So that's what the organization is looking like. Now, how does this fit into the FUSF ultrasound ecosystem? I know this is going to be a lot of information to look at on one slide, so I'll just break it down, and then I'll give you a few seconds to absorb it. On the left here, we have the features that each of these organizations could have. And then there we have FUSF Ultrasound Foundation, their IS2, and what's IFUS, or the FUSF Ultrasound Clinical Organization. This is just a comparative chart that shows which of these do, apply to which features. So I'll give you a second to absorb that, and then I'll kind of go through it. Okay, so as you see, we have advocacy work. This is going to be housed within the foundation and the clinical organization, but IS2 does not currently do this. Information management really sits within the foundation, but the clinical organization will also have some of this that they'll support. So they'll have their own website, they'll have webinars. We'll figure out if they'll have newsletter, FUSF News Digest, and podcasts, but we're not planning to have the state of the field sit in the clinical organization or focus feature. Currently, IS2 only has website, webinar, and newsletter in this category. Education is going to be where the clinical organization really shines, with internships, fellowships, professional training, and CME, where the foundation currently has internships and fellowships, and IS2 has none of the above. Moving on to meetings and workshops, this is across the board with all of these organizations, but the clinical organization will be more clinical focused, as the name suggests. Research funding will really sit within the foundation, and the clinical organization in IS2 will not participate in heavy research. Patient registries and credentialing and certification will sit within the clinical organization. Patient support is in the foundation and the clinical organization. And then the clinical organization will have best practice development and clinical guidelines. And then some awards, TBD on the clinical organization, but they do currently have them at IS2, and we have them at the foundation. So I wanted to break this out into really just the core activities for IFUS. A lot of these are listed on the previous slide, but just to really simplify it here, we're looking at educational programs, meetings and conferences, credentialing and certification, webinars, clinical guidelines, resources, advocacy, patient registries, patient support, and a journal. I want to double click even further into the programs and what this will look like from an internal perspective, what it takes to put these programs on. Start with clinical education. We're going to see a few slides just like this one. So again, breaking this down into objective, staff support, cost estimate, revenue estimate, and prep time. For clinical education, this is going to be a hands-on training, certificate courses, and clinical modules for FUSF ultrasound professionals. We're expecting staff support to be around 60 to 90 hours per course across various staff. And the cost for each course is going to be around $3,000 to $4,500 for these, primarily in staff wages. Now, these won't bring in any money because this is going to be included in the membership of the society. And so there will be $0 brought in from this, but it will be brought in other ways. We'll have conferences. These are the annual flagship gatherings with keynotes, panels, workshops, and networking. These will be a heavy resource load. So we'll have 500 to 700 hours across event planners and managers. This will also be very costly, upwards of $100,000. And revenue, it's very frequent that these events are revenue generating for these organizations. And so we do expect to bring in some additional revenue that will, that's past just covering the costs. Next, we have the clinical guideline hub. So each guideline is going to cost a certain amount. So in staff support, that's going to look like around 80 to 100 hours per guideline. And cost estimate will be for publishing, external reviews, and staff wages coming in at around $3,000 to $4,500. Again, these will be free for members or included in the membership. So no, this will not be revenue generating. Lastly, we have webinars. These are virtual, so a lot less labor intensive. We're looking at 20 to 30 hours per webinar across the staff. The cost for these will be around $400 to $1,100 per course, depending on what the course looks like. And then these are also included in the membership. So we've talked a lot about funding and the programs. And so I wanted to show who is actually going to be these members that we speak of and what will they pay to be a part of this clinical organization. So here are our member categories. We have physicians, scientists and researchers, FUSF affiliates and allied health, and students and residents. Each of these categories will have their respective dues, payments, and I've put a schedule here of what that may look like. There are a couple different options we can do. One option is to have a 20% first year discount. So as you see in year one, each one is discounted. But there's also another option to have free dues for the first year to really get a lot of people in the door, establish that community. So those numbers would look a little bit different, but here's showing the 20% first year discount. And then second through fourth year, this can even out in those dues numbers. And then I just put the plus sign to show that, we can increase those as needed as the society grows. So here's just exactly those numbers you've already seen broken down in a different way, a little more simplified. And so I wanted to see, okay, if we're charging each of these members these amounts, how many members do we expect to have and how much revenue does that give us in total? So here's what that would look like. So estimating between 40 and 100 members per category. These are just estimates, so these could change greatly. But if we had those numbers, the total revenue would look for year one just under $40,000, and year two would be with the growth in both dues dollars and estimated members, we would see a doubling of those numbers, so giving us just over $80,000. Now, membership dues are not the only way that we would bring in revenue. A big portion of revenue is going to be brought in by sponsorships. So sponsors will be tiered between platinum, gold, silver, and bronze, all of them with their respective sponsor amounts in $1,500 to $2,500, $15,000 to $2,500 respectively. And then each of them will also have benefits that come along with that sponsorship tier. For example, Platinum will have top logo placement, 5 conference passes, and premium exhibit space, and a dedicated email feature to attendees. Now, this is all good, but is anybody actually going to want to be our sponsor? Great question. I'm glad you asked. We have sponsorships here that these folks listed on this slide are current sponsors of these levels at other Focus Ultrasound or similar organizations. So we do have strong confidence that these folks and others will be open to being our sponsors. And I think this would be a really good place to start for reaching out and getting these folks on board, because they already are paying this much or more for each of their other sponsorships. So now we take the membership dues and the sponsorships that we just saw, and I'm just going to add those together for simplicity here. So the membership dues we saw was that $39,000 number. And sponsorships, if we assume 2 sponsors per level or per tier, that would give us 65,000. So you can really see that sponsors are going to be very important to this income. And so we would come in year one around $100,000 if we decide to charge those membership dues. Year two, you see a different number for sponsorships. We're anticipating, growth in those sponsorships. So this is anticipating 2 platinum, 3 gold, 4 silver, and 4 bronze. But you can see that this is a huge lever we could pull to bring in more income. Year two, we're looking at around 173,000. So that's really the basis of the analysis that's been done. And a lot of these decisions have been made with an organizing committee that's already established and has been in contact with each other. The organizing committee currently is this group, and there's already been talk about adding a few more folks in here, including some women. And so this is chaired by Nir Lipsman, and it's been really great to be able to coordinate with these folks. They've given their thoughts on the name, the vision, the mission, the dues, and the core activities. So they've been a great help. But there's more than just what the organizing committee will do. There's something, luckily, for people in this room as well. And then the organizing committee, as well as the staff that will be brought on for the clinical organization. So hitting just a few high-level bullet points here for priorities for the foundation staff to actually get this entity up and running. It's going to need a lot of accounting and legal work, including preparing the articles of incorporation, applying for the EIN, opening the bank account, establishing the MOU, etc. So that's going to be very key for folks at the foundation. The organizing committee will cover confirming the name, mission, and vision, preparing the bylaws. They'll confirm programs, select and hire leadership, and confirm the initial committees. And then once those things are done and we're kind of up and running, we actually have an entity formed, then we'll hire some staff, and those staff will be responsible for building the website, drafting the program calendar, starting planning the first conference, and building the curriculum planning, beginning the curriculum planning. So that's what we're looking at. It's really exciting stuff, but I'm happy to take any questions you have at this time.